Well, good morning guys, and welcome to my third video in the collaboration Jar It Up January. I am in a collaboration with 5 other channels. You can find their links down below. I will also leave the playlist up in a card so you guys can go ahead and look at all the videos that we've done so far. And today I am making, I'm canning garbanzo beans with garlic. And this is to have on my shelf for homemade hummus. I know many of you were very excited about this video, so I'm happy to share with you how I do it. This is a pressure canning video. Right now I have all of my jars in hot soapy water. So I'm gonna wash those up. I'm also gonna open these up and put them in a strainer, and I'm gonna pick through them just in case there's any rocks, because you never know if you might have a little stone, a little pebble. It only takes one time for somebody to crunch down on a stone to make you realize that you need to check your beans. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna pick through these, and then I'm gonna give them a really good wash with cold water. And then I'm gonna bring you back and we're gonna get all this in jars, and we're gonna process this in the pressure canner. All right, guys. All right, so my jars are nice and washed. I like to do these canning sessions in the morning before the kids get up, before the hecticness begins and homeschool begins and all of that. So if I whisper a little bit, you know why. All right, well, let me start over here, the closest one to you guys. All right, so what we're gonna do, now I can mine in quarts. You could definitely do pints. If you do pints, you're gonna use a half a cup. But when you do quarts, you're gonna do a whole cup. So, whole cup. Well, let me aim it up a little bit. There we go. So, a whole cup of garbanzo beans, and then let me fill up garbanzo beans first, and then I will go ahead and do the garlic. I'm just gonna throw, now I always throw out any beans that are like, you know, broken, half missing, little parts of them, crumbs, anything like that. I only want nice whole garbanzo beans in this. This is just a really nice way to have, I mean, if you feel like, you know, fresh hummus on a Saturday afternoon, it's nice to be able to go down and get garbanzo beans right off your pantry shelf. Okay, now I have 1 jar extra, so I have some leftover black beans. I have a half a cup. So I wanted to mix, I'm gonna do kind of like a, I guess you would say a red, white, and blue oddball jar. And this is what I do with my leftovers. So if I find I don't have enough beans, this is what I'll do. Let me aim you down and I'll show you how I conquer that problem. If I ever have leftover beans, it's just not enough to can, I save them. And then I make, like, you know, specialty beans. Now this is white navy beans, black beans, and red kidney beans, and I'm gonna put all of those in my jar. And not only is it gonna be really pretty on my shelf, but it's gonna be excellent for chili. So, or if you do beans and rice ever as a side dish, which we do with some steamed vegetables, really good and really pretty. It's really pretty in rice. So I like these kind of colorful beans, and that's an inspiration from Paul at Paul's Rule of Thumb. I'll leave his link in a card up above because he taught me how to do that, and I love it. I love it. So, all right, we're gonna go ahead now, and we are going to add our garlic. So, measuring spoons, I'm going to add a half a teaspoon of garlic to each one of these, except the chili beans. So let's move those out of the way. But I'm going to add, now I'm using minced dried garlic. I don't ever use fresh, that's just me. I only use dried products, dried seasonings when I'm canning. I have tried using fresh onion in some chili beans once. Didn't like the texture of them. I thought they were way too wormy and didn't like them. So, so I don't do that. Now, you can at this point add salt if you want to add salt. I'm not adding salt. I stopped adding salt, and I actually was talking to Paul about this because he doesn't add salt to his anyway either. To a lot of his food products. I don't really add it to my vegetables anymore, and I don't add it to my beans. You know, I'm an ingredient canner, so I add this stuff when I add it to my dishes and I cook. I just don't feel a need to have them sitting in salt water. So that's just my opinion. But at this point, if you do add salt and you like that, you know, the way it flavors your beans, go ahead and add your salt at this time. All right, so now I'm gonna fill my jars with water. I use our bottled Culligan water. I have a water machine. My dispenser does hot water, room temperature water, and cold water. I'm going to be using the room temperature water today. My canner is already filled with 3 inches of water, and it's room temperature. Whatever your canner, whatever the water is in your canner, that's what your jar should be. So if I was using hot water in my canner, I would be filling this with hot water. If I was using cold water in my canner, which I don't ever do because it takes way too long to heat up, but I would use cold water in my jars. You don't want to shock your jars. So whatever your canner temperature is, that's what you want for your jars. So I'm using room temperature water. I'm going to go ahead and go get those filled right now, and then I will be back and we'll put some lids and rings on these babies and get them in the canner. So after we get our jars filled, we're going to go ahead and we're going to debubble. This is a really important step. And get all of that extra air out of your jar. Okay, now what I'm going to do is after I debubble all of these, I'm going to go back around and I'm going to take out all of the floating beans from my jars. Floating beans are bad beans. So I'm going to get those removed out of our jars. Now, if you don't want to add the garlic to this, you don't have to add the garlic. When I first started canning garbanzo beans, I didn't add the garlic. But I do find that the beans get infused with the garlic when you pressure can them. Oh, and it tastes so good in hummus. So, I'm going to just go ahead and I'm going to, with a very clean stainless steel spoon. You can use plastic if you want, but I like a clean stainless steel spoon. I'm going to go ahead and check all of my jars. Make sure nothing else is floating. They all look pretty. All right. Now we're going to go ahead and clean the rims. I wipe the rims down with vinegar. Straight vinegar. I don't mix it. Okay. And then we're going to go ahead and put lids on all of these. I soak my lids in hot water. I did not simmer these, I just put them in really hot water. I find it does help it to soften that compound. That's just my experience, and so far it's worked for me. I very, very rarely have a failed seal. Make sure all of your rings nice and clean. As far as using wide mouth versus regular mouth, for beans, I have never found that it really makes a difference. The beans come out just as nice. And I usually like to save my wide mouth for like spaghetti sauce or anything that's super chunky that might be hard to get out of the jar. But beans are one of those things that come out, at least for me, a regular mouth, nice and easy. All right. bottom smack in the water. I'm gonna load these up. Isn't that pretty? It's just so pretty. All right. So there we go. Now I'm gonna go ahead and I just have about, if I had to guess, maybe a tablespoon of vinegar. I'm just gonna go ahead and add that into the water. Don't pour it on your jars because that will discolor them and turn them black. But add it to your water if you add vinegar. It's kind of divided. Some people add vinegar, some people don't. So I do because I have well water, and if I don't, my jars are covered in white. Not a big deal. You can scrub it off. I clean my jars anyway after a canning session, but just makes cleaning them a little bit easier. So now I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put this lid on. With that, I'm gonna go ahead and turn this on. Now everything is at room temp. I'm gonna turn mine on high. Some people start in medium. I start kind of like, not on super high, but like a medium high heat. And then I'm just gonna bring this up to temperature. And when it starts venting, I will bring you back. I'll show you what that looks like. Now that my canner is venting, I'm gonna set the timer over here for 10 minutes. We're gonna let this vent, and then we're gonna go ahead and put the weight on. So I'll bring you back when I put that weight on. 10 minutes are up. I can at 10 pounds of pressure, so I'm gonna put my weight on at 10 pounds. And now we are going to bring this up to pressure, or 10 pounds, which is 240 degrees. Mine likes to sit at this house around 11 pounds, almost 12. So once this starts jiggling and once I'm up to temperature, we will then turn this canner down and we will do a slow, steady canning process, controlling our temperature, which helps with the evacuation and siphoning. And we will can this now for 90 minutes, an hour and a half. Nice long canning session. It'll warm up my house beautifully. So, all right, I'll bring you back when we start. All right, we're jiggling, and now I have a notch blackened out on my burner here, on my little temperature control, and I know exactly where my canner likes to sit. So I'm gonna turn this down. I'm gonna keep an eye on my temperature as I do that, and I'm going to make sure it never drops below 240 as I set my temp. And then we're gonna go ahead and set this up for an hour and 30 minutes and start that. And then I also do a timer on my microwave as a backup. I always run 2 timers. Ask me why I run 2 timers, and I will tell you it's because sometimes one fails you or gets shut off on accident. So I now always have a backup. All right, this is gonna sit pretty now. I'm gonna make sure my jiggler jiggles between 1 and 4 times a minute. And then I'm gonna go about my day this morning, you know, cleaning and, you know, doing all my normal things, getting my routine done before we homeschool, after lunch, and I'm gonna let this baby go. All right, when this is done processing, in an hour and a half, I will shut it off the burner. I will let it come off of pressure. And then I will remove the weight, and then I'm gonna crack open my lid, let it sit for about 10-15 minutes with the lid cracked. That just brings my jars up to kind of room temperature a little bit easier, so I don't shock them when I bring them out to the cold air, because in Michigan today it's 3 degrees. And then when I pull my jars out of the canner, I will bring you guys back and I will show you what my garbanzo beans look like. So my lid has been cracked for, I've had it cracked for about a half hour or so as I cleaned up the house and got laundry done. So I'm going to make note now. Do not can like I do. This is not an improved method. I forgot to mention that, I think, in the beginning of the video, because it's early in the morning. dry canning beans is not an approved method. So do your research. Do your research. I have done my research and I'm extremely comfortable in dry canning beans. Okay, let me aim you down here. Make sure you guys can see. There's meat that I made for dinner for tomorrow night. Figured since I was browning up meat, I might as well do 2 nights worth. That way on a Saturday night, it's just less work, right? All right. Now that one I heard evacuate on me. That was my center one. When I lifted the lid, I just heard it. So sometimes that happens to the best of us. So that one I will be using over the weekend to make hummus with, which I plan to do anyway. But the headspace on all the rest of them are beautiful. But once in a while you will get a little tricky jar on ya, and one that just changed temperature much too fast. And if you see, that one is also still boiling. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you give it a try. You can crack these open and use your favorite hummus recipe. All right, guys, I will be seeing you in another 6 days for another canning video. We will be doing a black-eyed peas with a ham stock. So it'll be delicious, and I can't wait to see you then. Make sure you check out everybody else's videos down below in their channels, along with the playlist I have up in a card for you, and I'll be seeing you in a few days. All right, bye guys.